Okay, so I've taken this back to the miter saw and I've trimmed it so I know that it's good and flush and square and I'm ready to start. So what you want to do is open up your vise and we're going to clamp this wide face up in the vise. I would prefer to have maybe a foot or so sticking out the end here. And I'll clamp it back in just tight enough that where it will not move. So if it's moving like that, you don't want to pull too hard. You can break the bench vise here, which will not make us very happy if you do that. It's not moving around. At this point, we're good to go. Okay, so now that I have my wood clamped in the vise and secured well, I need to mark off my block. So first thing, you can see right now that the side of the tri-square starts at 8 and goes to 0. Do not use that side. Flip it over, use the side that starts at 0 and goes to 8. I need to butt this up against the end of the board. So here, this is an end, this is an edge, this is a face. I put it up against the end. I need two different measurements. I want 3.5 inches, so I'll go to 3 plus an extra half, put a little mark in line with it. I also want 3 3/4 or 3 12/16. So I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4 more 16ths and put a second line there. Okay. Once you have those two marks, again 3.5, 3 3/4. Be very careful not to do 3 1/4. We do not want that. That'll give you a block that's too small. I'm going to turn the tri-square 90 degrees, make sure it's tight up against the edge of the wood, and strike these lines the whole way across the board. You should have two lines that look like that. Alright, so now that my board is clamped into the vise and we've marked our two lines, which from that angle you probably can't see, but we have our 3.5 inch line here and our 3 3/4 line here, which is closer to the table. Cut on the 3 3/4 of an inch line that's closest to the table. To get started, we want to make sure that the saw is kept at roughly a 45-degree angle to the wood. If you're shorter, just keep it at an angle the best you can. And we want to make sure that it's pretty square to the wood. You don't actually need to use the tri-square to do this, but we don't want to cut at an angle this way or this way, or this way or this way. So we want to try and keep this as straight as possible. Just to kind of gauge, I can set the tri-square there and see about where I'm at. Looks pretty good. For the first few strokes, on the other side, just to show you so you can see, I rest my fingers like this, up away from the teeth, so I can glide this and support it while I'm cutting, just to get started. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Pull back the first maybe 3 strokes or so to get a start on my cut here. While I'm cutting, notice I'm a bit off to the side of my saw. If I'm right in front of it, it's going to be more difficult. I'm limiting my motion. If I'm off to the side, I have a full swing of my arm. It's going to be much easier. When you're cutting, one-handed or two-handed, if you want to do two hands, rest your other hand on top. And we again want to try and keep this nice and straight. Use the saw. Don't wear yourself out only using 5 teeth of the saw. Use that whole motion. If you find that it keeps twisting and bending and buckling, you're probably not lined up well. Try adjusting where you're standing. Once you're almost through, you'll hear that sound start to change. Do not chop this off. Do not. Either hold it and cut with your other hand, or have someone else hold this for you. What we don't want to have happen is, if you chop it, or if you don't hold it, it could use gravity, could pull a chunk out of your block or the next couple blocks down the board. We don't want to do that. So, finish up nice and easy here. There we go. You're going to have some splinters on the board. That's why we have the file out. Take your file, just run it flat side. If it's, most of ours are half round. Use the flat side and just get those splinters off. that extra line is because your cut is probably not gonna be perfect. By probably not, I mean, it will not be. It's just not gonna happen. So, that's just to give us a little margin of error so we can clean this up and make it a perfect cut with the miter saw. Use a pencil. If you have one side that's nicer than the other, leave the nice side plain. On the side that's not quite as nice, put your name, your period, and day 1 or day 2. And at this point, take this to your teacher and have them trim it up on the miter saw so you have that perfect edge.